Hello everyone and welcome to a new video. Today we're going to paint these two Heavy Intercessors as Ultramarines. Maybe you remember these miniatures from the video in which I showed my whole pile of shame, so in case that you're interested I'm going to leave the link in the description. It is important to mention that the color scheme of a regular Ultramarine is slightly different from a Sergeant, so to make things much easier, first we're going to paint this regular Heavy Intercessor and after that we are going to focus on the Sergeant. And the first color that I'm going to use is Cantor Blue for the Power Armor. Let's continue working on that blue power armor, and now I'm going to use Macrash Blue. With this color I'm going to cover the most exposed areas in the front of the miniature, and then I'm going to edge highlight the rest of the power armor. Now that this is starting to look like an Ultramarine, I'm going to use Abaddon Black to paint the weapon and the inside parts of the power armor. Now I'm going to use Wraithbone to paint the parchments that we have here, and after that I'm going to use Morphan Brown to paint the belt, holster of the pistol and also the strap around the weapon. Let's start with the metallic colors, and now I'm going to use Led Belcher to paint all the detail on the weapon and power armor, also this grenade that he has on the hand, and then I'm going to use Balthasar Gold to paint the symbol on the chest, shoulder pads and also this Ultramarine symbol right there. Now that we finished with the base colors, we can start with the shades, and I'm going to use two of them. First, I'm going to apply Nuln Oil to the silver color, and after that I'm going to apply Agrax Earthshade to the gold color, brown color and Wraithbone. After the shades, we're going to start with the highlights, and I'm going to start with the blue power armor. For that, I'm going to apply Calgar Blue on the areas that are going to be the most exposed. Let's continue with the highlights, and now I'm going to use Dawnstone to highlight the black color, especially the weapon, and then I'm going to use Scrag Brown to highlight, of course, the brown color. And now we're going to highlight the metallic colors. I'm going to use Retributor Armor to highlight the gold color, and then I will use Stormhost Silver to highlight, of course, the silver color. Now for the eyes, first I'm going to use corn red and then I'm going to apply a little bit of Avril Sun Scarlet. Now we just need to decorate those shoulder pads and we're going to add some writings here. Maybe if it seems a little bit more difficult because we don't have any kind of guide on the miniature, it's okay, it's not as difficult as it seems. We're just going to do the Ultramarine symbol here, and once we do it we just correct it until it looks how we want it to look. Same here, this is a battle line unit, so it's quite simple. We do a square, then a triangle, and it should be okay. So I'm going to use Corax White to do the symbols on the shoulder pads, and then I'm going to use Abaddon Black to paint around those symbols and add some writings here. Okay, here we have our Heavy Intercessor. We just need to base this miniature, but first we are going to paint this Sergeant. Here we have our Sergeant. In this case we have a sculpted shoulder pad, so it will be slightly easier, and the main difference with a Sergeant and a regular Heavy Intercessor from the Ultramarine chapter is that he's going to have a different helmet. He will have some heraldry there, and I'm going to use for everything else the exact same color scheme. So I will do exactly what I did previously, but I'm going to stop to show exactly what I'm doing with those different parts later. Until now we follow the exact same color scheme except for this knee, because of course this is a sergeant, an ultramarine sergeant, and that means that we have to follow the Codex Astartes. And now I'm going to paint the helmet, this element right here, and I'm also going to paint the purity seals plus this skull. For that I'm going to use corn red as the base color, and after that I'm going to apply highlights with Evil Sun Scarlet. At this point we just need to paint the eyes, and in this case the helmet is red, so we're going to paint them green, and I'm going to use Cavalite green, and after that I'm going to use Sybarite green. We just need to base these miniatures, and for my Ultramarines I like to do something a little bit unnecessarily complicated, but I started basing all of them like this, so this is what I'm doing right now. So first I'm going to apply Sterland Matte, after that I'm going to apply just a little bit of Martian Iron Earth, and then I apply a little bit of Arax Earth Shade to the base, and finally I just dry brush everything with Evil Sun Scarlet. And this is it, this is the final result, this is how I painted these Heavy Intercessors as Ultramarines. As always, I invite you to let me know in the comments what you think about these miniatures, and of course, if you like what I do and you would like to support my work and help me to continue growing, I invite you to check the link to my Patreon in the description. And now let's take a look at these miniatures individually, starting with this one. There's nothing much for me to say about this miniature, it's just a regular Heavy Intercessor painted as an Ultramarine in the same way that I have been painting my Ultramarines previously. But there's something that I'm especially happy about this miniature, and it's the Ultramarine symbol. Especially if I compare it with other Ultramarines, like for example this Infernus Marine, and if I compare the symbols I can see that this one looks much better. Maybe it's a little bit more thick than it should be, but I think that I'm getting better with time, and yes, I'm very happy about that. Aside from that, to be honest, there's not much for me to say. I have to admit that Ultramarines are fun to paint, even as Heavy Intercessors. I really like Heavy Intercessors, I like Gravis Armour a lot, and I'm happy that I was able to paint an Ultramarine wearing this kind of armor. Then here we have the Sergeant of the unit, and we have to talk a little bit more about this miniature, because as a Sergeant he's a little bit more unique. This is a sculpted shoulder pad from the Ultramarine upgrades, so it was easier to paint, but still we had the opportunity to make more Ultramarine symbols. I also would like to mention the battle line symbol, quite easy to do because it's just a square and a triangle, but the most complicated part for me is always this knee, because it's very round and it's difficult for me to do like the perfect or at least good looking Ultramarine symbol right there. But I can see that I'm getting there because, for example, again, if we compare this miniature with this Infernus Marine, we can clearly see an improvement here. So I want to encourage you to keep trying, and if things don't work on the first try, just keep trying, because with time and with practice we get better for sure. With the heraldry, as you can see here, I went full red and white. I wanted to see how it would look, and I have to admit that I'm not in love with the final result. I'm going to leave it like this for this sergeant, but I don't think that I will repeat that in the future, because I like to have like this red helmet on the blue background of the miniature, and I think that if I add another red element next to it, it's like, I don't know, it's like it's getting too much attention in my opinion, this heraldry, and I prefer to give all the attention to the helmet. Aside from that, not much else for me to say about this miniature, just a regular heavy intercessor painted as an ultramarine sergeant, so I hope that you like how this miniature looks. This is how I painted this heavy intercessor as ultramarines, and I hope that you like the final result. For me it was super fun to paint these miniatures, and I'm very happy that I was able to share the experience with all of you. As always, if you're still here, please consider giving me a like and subscribing. Thank you very much for watching, and see you next time.